Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia, and welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup of Season 2019. And I wanted to do a bottom 5 for once. Yeah, I know I've done some top 5s recently, but it's time to do a bottom 5. The 5 teams I think have had the poorest transfer windows so far, and teams I think that need to improve. Now, just a word of warning, over the coming days, I'm not sure what content's going to be coming out, because now transfers are starting to become a little less common. I'm not sure what we're going to put out, so if there are days where I miss uploads, that's probably the reason. If I can't think of content, I don't want to force content out just because for the heck of it and get content out. I don't want to do that because it'll probably be poor content, and I don't want to do that to you guys. So, just a word of warning. Anyway, I shouldn't be keeping babbling on. I have selected 5 teams out of the 20 teams in the league that I think need to step up in this transfer window, because I don't think they've made enough signings, or I don't think they've made the right signings, or I don't think they look particularly good right now. Now, the first team I'm going to look at is a Hangzhou Spark. Now, this might be a bit of a weird one, but it's not so much that Hangzhou Spark have lost too many people. They have lost a few people, but I don't think it's too debilitating for the Hangzhou Spark. But the thing is, they haven't really added anyone. And when I look at other teams in the league, and I pick out teams like Toronto Defiance, I pick out Philadelphia Fusion, maybe even the Paris Eternal, although I have some question marks over those. Houston Outlaws, Atlanta Reign, they're all getting better, right? Even perhaps Dallas Fuel, depending on the signings they make for the rest of the transfer window. They're all getting better, and Hangzhou Spark have kind of just sat there and been like, well, yeah, here we are. We've got a roster currently signed over Adora, Godsby, Sassin, Rhea, Gujue, Bebe, and IDK. Nothing new there. Bit smaller than last time, but nothing new. And I don't know whether this might mean that Hangzhou Spark slip a bit, because they haven't moved with the rest of the teams getting better. Now, obviously, there's plenty of transfer time to go, so they could still make a few transfers that could really push Hangzhou Spark right up there. I mean, they were last season. They were a very good team last season. Everyone said they were very good in scrims, and they did prove it getting to the playoffs. But they could make a few signings that could make them real contenders for the whole darn thing. But I haven't seen the moves I wanted to see from the Hangzhou Spark as of yet. Again, there's time for this, and it could still happen. Then, we've got the Vancouver Titans. Yeah, this is an interesting one. They haven't nailed down anyone yet. They've let go of Rappel. They've now lost Hureg because he's going to become a coach. So they've lost basically all of their backups. TZ's gone as well. And there are rumours that Bumper is also leaving the Vancouver Titans, possibly to the Shanghai Dragons. And I tell you what, watch out for the Shanghai Dragons, they're making some moves. And the problem I have here with the Vancouver Titans, when you look at the meta we're going into, currently if you look on the PTR, tanks are becoming brawly. They're becoming much more the playmaker instead of the shield bot, if you catch my meaning, right? That plays into Bumper's hands, right? He loves being a playmaker. He loves being aggressive. Now, when Orisa came along and became basically a shield bot, you might have noticed that Bumper didn't exactly play a lot. It was more TZ playing because Orisa really doesn't suit Bumper's style. Now, if we were going to stay in that meta, I could kind of understand. But we're looking at a re-emergence of Reinhardt. We're looking at the re-emergence of playmaking tanks, which would really fit into Bumper's playstyle. So I really think that the Vancouver Titans need to make some signings. Now, I really expect them to make some signings. The question is, if they do lose Bumper, they need to replace their main tank. And the rumoured replacement for Bumper is Fisher, coming out of retirement. And, when you sign Fisher, you are going to get a lot of questions. Fisher has a questionable temperament. He didn't do very well at London Spitfire. Although, I can understand that. He didn't want to be a bench warmer. I can understand that. He then went to the Gladiators, didn't get on very well there, and then went to Seoul Dynasty and didn't get on very well there, even with a whole team of Koreans around him. So, how are the Vancouver Titans, if they do sign Fisher, gonna make sure he doesn't get a strop on? Let's be honest. This is Fisher we're talking about. So, I have a lot of questions over the main tank role for the Vancouver Titans if they lose Bumper. Also, I think they need to make some signings in terms of backups. They've got no backup DPS, they've got no backup support, and no backup tank. They have literally got a 7-man roster, with Sominsu being the flex, with Stitch and Haxel on a DPS. Now, Stitch and Haxel are great DPS, don't get me wrong. Sominsu is fantastic. but I don't see squad depth for the Vancouver Titans. I have questions over the tank line if they do lose Bumper. Big couple of weeks coming up for the Vancouver Titans, I think. Now, moving on, and I'm going to have a look at the Guangzhou Charge. Now, the Guangzhou Charge is an interesting one. They did better last season than I think a lot of people expected them to, and that's great and all, but I thought with a few additions, a few tweaks here and there, I thought the Guangzhou Charge could really make some improvements in this offseason and become, perhaps, a playoff contending team. Now, I really think the shining part of the Guangzhou Charge is their DPS, Eileen, Happy and Nero, and there was no need to change that, and they haven't changed that, which is great to see. The thing is, then I look at their tank line and their support line, and I'm not sure whether it keeps up with the rest of the league right now. The great signing for Guangzhou Charge is Krong, right? Their new off-tank. I think he's a great signing. I think that should be a really good partner for Rio. But is Rio a good enough main tank? Is a question. And then you look at their support line, currently they've got 4 supports, Shu, Chara, Weya, and Neptuno. Well, I really don't understand where Neptuno fits in here. I really, really don't understand where Neptuno fits in here. He has got to be a backup for the Guangzhou Charge, because I do not see him starting. No offense to Neptuno, but there's a language barrier to get through here. He may have picked up some stuff at the Philadelphia Fusion, but Neptuno just looks to me like an odd one out. Weya, yeah, he can fit in, but he hasn't got the best of history, shall we say. He's been near the top of Chinese contenders and Pacific contenders, but can he compete with the likes of Shu and Chara, who were good for Guangzhou Charge, but they weren't fantastic. When I look at the Guangzhou Charge, I don't see a fantastic support line. I really wanted to see the Guangzhou Charge improve their main tank and improve their support line. And when I, put all the cards on the table, I look at their support line and I'm like, the signings they've made, they haven't really improved their support line. They've just bulked it slightly. So, I have some questions to ask of the Guangzhou Charge. I think they need to sign a main tank. I really want to see Guangzhou Charge sign a main tank. Rio can be good, but in long term, I'm not sure whether he's good enough. That is my question for the Guangzhou Charge. Then we get on to these two, and these two by far stand out to me as being behind the rest of the league right now. And remember, we've got a lot of teams that haven't announced things, so New York Excelsior, Florida Mayhem, Chengdu Hunters, San Francisco Shock. There's a lot to be announced there, but we were not expecting New York, San Francisco to lose much. Florida Mayhem, you never bloomin' know. I'm not expecting Chengdu Hunters to lose much, so I think they should be fairly alright. But when I look at two teams in the league that I am worried about, and I mean I'm worried about them, the first one is Los Angeles Valiant. Los Angeles Valiant, I have not seen improvements. I've not seen anything outstanding come in, right? So currently signed to the LA Valiant, we've got Custer, KSF, Shax, McGravy, Dreamer, Apply, Slur, and Lastro. Now, they've almost completely rejigged their support line, with only Custer being the remaining from last year. Slur, I honestly, even being from Great Britain myself, I didn't know much about Slur. He comes from Samsung Morning Stars. He didn't make it into the GB World Cup team, so there's that there. Whatever you make of it, but Slur doesn't seem like an improvement on what the LA Valiant already had. When we look at Lastro comes from Sky Foxes. Okay. That's all I can say about that. That's like, is Lastro an improvement? He's really young, and it could be a development for the LA Valiant. But is he an improvement over what the LA Valiant already had? Again, I'd have to say, probably not. And that's unfortunate. And then we look at the tank line for the LA Valiant, and they've signed Dreamer. Now, Dreamer comes from Sydney Drop Bears in Australian contenders. Yeah. He's South Korean. He's got really varied hero pool. But the thing is, he doesn't look like a starting player. He just doesn't look like a starting player. He can play tank and support, but he doesn't look like a starting player for the LA Valiant here. Now, I can only assume that there are going to be more transfers for the LA Valiant. because I don't see a main tank here in Dreamer. I just don't. I think there is a big gaping hole in the LA Valiant. The tank line looks... I'm sorry, and I'm going to be really, really blunt here. The tank line of McGravy and Dreamer looks bad. I mean bad. It could be the worst tank line in the league right now. So I really, really need to see some improvements from the LA Valiant if I'm going to put any confidence in them in my power rankings when they come up. Because apart, they've got good DPS, the Valiant. When you look at Apply, Shax, KSF, they're good DPS. But the rest of the team doesn't look like it's up to standard with the rest. So I can't back the Valiant right now. There are so many questions over the Valiant. So many questions. And it's odd, because they just had a reinvestment from, or Immortals have, of the sale of the Houston Outlaws. Now, I know they had to buy Houston Outlaws in the first place, but surely some of that money, if not all of it, could have gone back into the LA Valiant to put some good signings in. Then the question is to be asked, why, oh why did they get rid of Fact Fiction? Why did they get rid of Fact Fiction? I think Fact Fiction and McGravy would have worked pretty well together. And, they must have another main tank in mind. They must have it, because if they don't, I would be seriously worried for the LA Valiant this coming season. Seriously, seriously worried. And that leads me on to my last team on this list. It might not surprise people. It's the Boston Uprising. Yeah. Boston Uprising, and I'm gonna be brutal here. Very brutal. Boston Uprising haven't looked good since they lost Krusty to the San Francisco Shock, their coach. I'm gonna be brutally honest here. They have not looked good since Krusty left. What Krusty did with the Boston Uprising in the inaugural season was mind-blowing, and that's why he got the job at the San Francisco Shock, and that's why he's got an Overwatch League winners medal now. Now, when I look at the Boston Uprising roster, Color Hex, Axiom, Fusions, Moonbong, Jerry, Muffin, who's a two-way, and Swimmer. Now, Swimmer's a great story. I really love the Swimmer story. He was 1500 SR, something like that, in Season 4, and now he's playing in the Overwatch League. I mean, that's Path to Pro at its finest. But when I look at this team, I'm like, Moonbong's a really good signing. Moonbong's a really good signing, right? Support from O2 Blast. O2 Blast have done really well in contenders. Yeah, but one man doesn't make a team. And when I look at this team, Fusions can be a good main tank, but I think he's got to be paired with the right sort of off-tank. Is Axiom the right off-tank for Fusions? I don't know. Color Hex, I am still not convinced about. I haven't been convinced. I wasn't convinced last season with Color Hex. I still don't think he's at the level of the rest of the league. Then we look at their new DPS, Jerry. Jerry comes from Meta Anthena. Jerry could be a decent pickup. He has been at X6 Gaming, he did decently at X6 Gaming, he went to Meta Anthena, got through Contenders Trials in Korea. They came second, so they didn't exactly storm Contenders Trials in Korea. But then they just kind of withered away when they got to the actual Contender season. So, I'm not sure whether he's the best DPS they could have picked up. Let's be honest. When you look at what some of the other teams that were finished lower in the league are doing now, one would be pointing out the Paris Eternal when they've signed Sparkle and people like that. They're making moves. They're making moves. And the Boston Uprising look like, once again, they haven't really made any moves. This is the Boston Uprising all over, isn't it? So, I really don't know what to say about the Boston Uprising. It looks shaky. Big, big shakes at the Boston Uprising. There is nothing here I can see that puts Boston Uprising any higher than about 17th in the league. And that's where I'm going to be brutally honest. And at the moment, I could say the same for the LA Valiant as well. So, there is work to be done at those two teams. Much more than the previous three teams, Hangzhou, Vancouver, and Guangzhou. Boston Uprising and the Valiant are the two teams that stand out to me right now as having issues. They are having issues. There are other teams I could say, you could put London Spitfire in there. But the thing is, I have a lot of confidence in the coaching staff that London have picked up, so I think London might make that work. I also have questions over Seoul Dynasty's support line. That's another one. There are a few teams that you could have questions about, but the two that stand out to me are the Boston Uprising and the LA Valiant. They need to make changes, otherwise I think they could be propping up this league next year. But I'm going to leave it here for this one. Remember, I did say at the start of the video that, you know, content might be a bit odd over the next few days because I don't know where it's going to come from because, you know, people aren't making as many signings as they were. There will be another transfer roundup at some point when we get enough signings to actually talk about. And I might do a top 5 teams that have had the best transfer window so far. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.